Yeah. Hey,
Yeah. How you doing?
uh, been better. Been
Oh, yeah.
better. A little tired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about?
Uh, is it does that to pertain to the topic or just anything in general?
No, just, anything going on with you that you want to talk about or get off your chest or unload?
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Well, moving sucks. That's about
Oh, yeah.
it.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
really sucks, especially when you're trying to move like multiple states. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it really sucks.
Where are you moving from and to?
Oh, in Oklahoma, moving back to Indy soon. So
Okay. All right. Hell yeah.
yeah, so I'm taking a break from packing and everything and trying to label everything. It's just the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think last time I've like lived in a different place like every year for the past like 3 or 4 years. And like
Oh,
the last time I was like, all right, next place I live, not only I gotta live there 2 years minimum at least, but
uh-huh.
I think after this I need to buy a place so I don't have to move again. That's how I'm feeling.
I'm so serious. I think like the next time I move, if there's a next time, it has to be like the final like
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Like I
gotta
have
be
to
it.
like be a house.
Yeah.
It don't
Not
have
the
to be
nomadic
it.
type. Not the nomadic type.
I am not. I always thought I was. It sounds majestic. And you think when you like talk about it and like, yeah, moving from place to place and it is
Yeah.
terrible.
I think it's like, it's probably easier if you live a more like minimalistic lifestyle, but that's never been me. That's never been.
Yeah.
No.
Have to have the memories and I have to take my stuff with me. Like I'm not about to keep buying like a new TV and
Yeah.
because it's like when because you have to like, buy new furniture and stuff if you don't want to, move it and yeah, it's just
Yeah.
I told somebody I was like, next time I'm going to invest in just blow up furniture. Like it's gonna have
Hmm.
to just be blown up furniture because I'm not gonna do it again. And I'm thinking about investing in it because I just don't see myself actually buying actual furniture. Like especially if I'm going to be moving a lot, like oh my lord.
Yeah.
I can't imagine because I know people that do it. Like they'll just get like this really big U-Haul and they'll just, take all their stuff and move, you
Hmm.
know, multiple states. And I'm just like, nah.
All right.
It sounds good.
Sounds, yeah, good on paper, but less in practice. All right, give me
Yeah,
one
yeah.
second. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick and then we'll go ahead and get started with the conversation.
All right.
Are we streaming those? We are. Okay, great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Mumbo Jumbo Community Conversations. My name is Chinyelu, and I will be our conversation facilitator today. And today it's really kind of an open dialogue and open discussion about education, especially here in our city. I know everybody in the call is either from here or familiar with Indianapolis, but I don't know if there's somebody like watching the YouTube live stream or whatever from somewhere else. But education's been a really big topic in our local conversation here, especially as the state government and the city government are looking to make some like major changes to how the education system works around here. Education is something that's very important to Kepra. It's one of our four E's, one of our four like pillar principles that inform our work. We're an educational organization, at our core, always have been, most likely always will be. And there are a lot of not only does that matter to us, but there are a lot of people in our circle, to whom education is very important. So this will not be the last conversation that we have on this. We've got another one coming up in July, so be on the lookout for that. But we thought we'd at least get the conversation today started by just hosting some open space to talk about education, what it means, what it could look like, and how we can work together to shape the educational resources that are available to us. So that'll be the topic of the conversation today. But as always, we got to get started with our check-in. And for anybody who is new to the space, who maybe hasn't done a Kepra meeting before, the check-in is just a little ritual that we do at the beginning of all of our sessions to make sure that we are maintaining an awareness of each other, so we know where everybody's at, if anybody needs anything, that we know how to take care of each other. So, what that typically looks like is everybody will give a number and a color that both are supposed to kind of represent, how you're feeling, where you're at in that moment. And then there will be a sort of like an icebreaker question as well. So, typically, I like to do something that relates to the topic a little bit. So maybe for this one, we could say, mm, when you want to learn something, where do you go? How about that? Yeah. Anybody feeling brave, like they want to start it off today?
Well, it
Go for
looks
it.
like
Take
there's a
your time.
grand total of four of us here today, so I guess I'll jump in there.
Go for it, John.
I've been here a time or two. Uh, Turquoise, maybe. I'm feeling pretty good today. Uh, if I'm trying to find something, usually I grab Google on my phone. I talk to it, and it usually gives me moderately accurate answers. And looking at everything with a little bit of a jaundiced eye, I can usually get to the truth behind it. So that's me.
Pass it to the next person.
Since I'm here, I'll go. My name is Canfing Kamara, or you can call me KC for short. In terms of a number, I'm feeling like three. And in terms of a color, I guess similarly to John, I guess I'm feeling kind of blue, not necessarily from sadness, just uh, myriad of feelings from calmness and just trying to improve my sleep. I feel like I'm not sleeping too well, but in terms of how I usually get my information, similarly, I either go to Google or have been blessed to know so many people with a great background in a variety of different subjects. So after doing preliminary research, it's always great to speak to people in my community and that I know.
Pass it to the next person. Great answer. Thank you. Also, your earrings are great. Yeah. Pass it to the next person. Camping.
Are
Yeah.
you? Oh, sorry. I'll give it to Is it wise?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's wise. I'm at about I'm purple. We saying the number two? Are we saying numbers 10?
Yes, sir.
I'm at an 8, purple 8. Where would I go to go learn something?
Yeah.
So the world is my classroom. So I'm just gonna say anywhere in the world. Yeah. So and what else? What else was the other question there for?
No, that was it. Yeah,
Okay.
number, color, and then where do, when you want to learn something, where you want to go. Yeah, and just
All
pass
right
it to the
then.
next person.
All right. Who else do we got? So I think that's everybody, right? Or
I don't think Cass went. I still gotta
okay,
go.
Cass. I'll pass it to
Yeah.
Cass.
There we go. Let's see. Color wise, I feel about a light spring green. Yeah, light spring green. Uh, number I'd say about 6.5. At the moment, it's a little, need a little bit more energy to get me through the rest of my day. Let's see. And where would I go to learn? You know what? I did go to AI a lot, but and I ended up learning that it takes like a lot of water. So I've been trying to do like other things, like um maybe like go to different search engines, maybe look in an encyclopedia, or also if as Kepler's doing a workshop or a class on it, um, I'll the shameless plug go, go to Kepler and because lately I've been into learning about planting and trying to plant food and everything. So um, the classes, like with the Soil Society has been a great help with that. Let's see. I think we have. Oh, yeah. Who else do we have? Because
Yeah,
I'm
I'll take
looking
it.
on. Oh, you'll
I'll
take it.
take it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and yeah, shout out to Cass for the Alchemy Plus plug. Yeah, what's up, y'all? I'm feeling like a I'm looking at the colors of the BP over there, so I'm gonna say BP green. I'm feeling like a 7 right now. And yeah, I think for me, it really depends on what I'm trying to learn. I think I really prefer to ask the people around me. I find myself looking for a lot of practical knowledge, in which case I like to tap into the resources of the people around me. I'm also a Google user. Although I think I've been kind of learning that Google is not really always the most reliable source these days. The way they curate their information has changed up a little. But I do still rely on that resource a lot. And I like to read a lot of books. So sometimes I have books about the things I'm trying to learn about. Sometimes I go and find books about the things I'm trying to learn about. The Kepler Library has definitely given me a few. And yeah. Yeah, and I'll pass it to Nas.
Hey, Nas here on tech. I'm feeling like my usual 9.5 purple, and I say I think I did a couple answers here where I go online, try to find as much preliminary information as I can, and then I go to my most trusted source, um, usually a trusted family member or a good friend.
Yeah, appreciate it, Nas. All right. So, thank you everybody for checking in. We may have some more people join us during the course of the conversation, either virtually or in person. And if we do, we'll just wait for the natural pauses in the conversation to let them do their check ins as well. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. I think we kind of just got like a few sort of like broad questions that I'll put out there and yeah, sort of like guide the conversation that way. But Yeah, and feel free to put forward questions as well. But I think the first thing that I wanna ask for the group, just to sort of get us going here, is just like, how do you conceptualize like education? I think that, and I ask that because, like, a lot of there's this conversation, for example, about like, should you go to college or should you go to a trade school? You know, what level of college, or how prestigious does the college that you go to need to be? Can you self-educate, homeschooling versus public schooling? There's a lot of people think that a lot of people think of education looks a lot of different ways, and there's like a lot of debate about, like, which way to get it versus, which way works, which ways don't. So I'm just curious, like, um, you know what does that look like for the people in this room? When you think of education, when you think of a valid source of education or a valid type of education, what do you imagine? Yes, please.
So when I think of education, this past year I've been working with the HOST program, which is helping one student to succeed, which is a current program within the Wayne Township school system, where people in the community, they don't necessarily need to be Wayne Township members, go into schools and help kids in elementary school with their overall literacy rates. And when I think about education in general, and that was a very a really big question to get into. I I believe it's more so an exploration of curiosity, which is what keeps people from, or keeps people coming back to get educated and get broader. When we get into the weeds of whether or not one should go to college or trade school, I think the point that's often missed is, besides, the technical learning that comes from whether that be a traditional 4-year community college or trades, is, are people still honing in on their curiosity? Are they wanting to improve their skills or overall um, empathy and socialization? Because the pros of college, in my opinion, when it comes to either traditional 4-year university, community college, gives people the resources to connect with more people within their communities and more experts, which is the pros of that. Unfortunately, unfortunately, most people don't have access to experts, especially not for free. The pros of going to, like, I went to Purdue, I was able to go to many speaker events that were all free to me as a student, and that supplemented my general college education or university education. And so, because I had that natural curiosity and the people around me have that general curiosity, I think that's an essential part of making sure the people around you, specifically, putting that into young children, is really important. So I think that's where we need to start off, ask, having people ask themselves why things are interesting. So,
So for you, it's really about cultivating that desire to learn. Okay, yeah. Can I ask, how did you get involved with? You said it's hosts.
yeah.
How did you get involved with that program? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I graduated from Ben Davis, and so I'm very familiar with Wayne Township in general. And so when I graduated from Purdue, I came back to Indianapolis, and I was very interested. I am a person, I will be honest, I was very interested in public education, K through 12 education, and that's where I see a lot of my life work falling into. And so I became a board member through the people I knew through Wayne Township. I emailed them and asked how I could get involved. So I became a member of the Wayne Township Education Foundation. And through that, I learned more about hosts, and it adjusted, my work schedule so I could go in every Friday morning to assist with that. And like I said, it's open to the community. The school year is almost over, but if anyone's interested in becoming a host mentor this upcoming school year, just let me know, reach out to Chin, and I can send you the information for that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that for sure. It's very interesting. I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about that, just like as the conversation goes on as well. I'm gonna maybe I would love to hear some more folks chime in on that question around, what is education to you? What counts as education to you? But first, I would love to have Mrs. Fair and my dad check in. What's up, y'all? The check-in question is number, color, and when you're trying to learn something, where do you go?
Well, I'm a yellow 10, P Fair. And when I'm trying to learn something, where do I go? Google. When I was in senior high school, it was the library to look up their encyclopedias. That was in the 60s. And then when I was in college, it was my textbooks. And then when in the 70s, I bought a set of encyclopedias for my senior high schoolers. And then when I was 80, the first set had gone, and the second set of senior high schoolers were upon us. And so I bought another set of encyclopedias. And now today, just remembering going through those encyclopedias trying to find stuff in reference books, I go straight to Google and happy to be able to do it. I'll pass it back inside. Khalil,
Yes, ma'am. And
remember the library in college and those reference books? You were all
yes,
up in
ma'am.
there?
Oh, yes, ma'am. And I remember your set of encyclopedias that still remain. Yes, ma'am. I do. That's so great. I noticed you didn't say you were in this emerging. You were in this You were in this. You were in this emerging. Hold on. Can you pause this, please? Okay, go ahead. You were in this. Your emerging uh
AI?
trajectory. Yeah, you didn't get to AI. You didn't make it to AI. I was thinking you got to Google, and that was it.
No,
I know.
I went
I
to
know you're using
Google.
AI. I know you're using Chat GPT over
I
there.
went to Google for information. Chat and the AI is to not give you just information, but to give you the verbiage to give to other people.
Okay. All right.
I
Good
just go
stuff.
straight to Google. Just give me the information. I'll put my own words together.
All right. I'm Khalil. I'm a green 8, and I go everywhere. I'm an educator, so I know that learning is happening everywhere, all the time, right now, yesterday, tomorrow, whenever. So I'm everywhere. I'm learning everywhere. I'm learning a lot about everybody here too in this moment. And then I'm gonna pass it to Kylie, who's jumping on.
Hi everyone, my name is Carly. Dad, turn that down. Turn that down. Hi everyone, my name's Carly. My number is 7. My color green. And what was the question again? Where do we go to learn?
Yeah, when you want to learn something, where do you go?
Um, it just depends on which where is more accessible. When I'm near my family when I'm just like on my laptop, probably Chat GBT. That one's most effective for me. And yeah, that's it.
All right. So yeah, thank y'all for joining us. The question that's out on the table right now, which Ken Finn got to start it off with an answer to, is just what counts as education to you? There's a lot of question about, stuff like trade school versus college, private school versus public, charter versus what else? So, like how do you define so what counts as a valid means of education, a valid form of education? What does that look like to you?
I'll kick in there. It's kind of scary after Cam did an intro like that. That was awesome and a little bit intimidating for any of the rest of us trying to throw something out there.
We'll try anyway, John.
It was a good job. Uh, I don't know. I'm another old one that we had encyclopedias when I was a kid in the 50s and 60s, and then I'd get into the library and do research. And now, pretty much like everybody, Google is an awesome source as long as you know it's not necessarily going to give you the perfect information. And AI is another source you can get data from, but it's what do they call it? It hallucinates sometimes. So as long as you understand what you're getting, then the electronic is fine. Uh, Back to the beginning, I think they're starting to get back to teaching phonetics in school so kids start reading better. Uh, that's what I grew up in. Grade school was in the 50s and high school in the late 60s. Uh, and then kids get a test, and I think, what is the third grade? If they can't pass that reading test, they hold them back until they can. Uh, Holding back is hard because all your friends move on, but if you can't read, the whole rest of the education system, clear through college or high school or whatever, uh, isn't going to do you near as much good as it should. So early education, uh, they said preschool education is great if it's high quality. And I think it ought to be free for everybody, and they ought to pay enough to the preschool teachers that they can attract the best and brightest and move them on up. They've had college people that turned out to be illiterate. They're in college, they're passing their classes, but they can't read. So start them out right, uh, and they'll probably make it clear on through. Uh, I came in the public schools. I think they pretty much do a great job. Uh, there's a couple of charter schools that outperform them. Part of it is they've just got a better overall approach to how they teach. And some of it is they don't have to take everybody like the public schools do. So not only English is a second language or people who are otherly enabled, uh, public schools teach everybody. I don't like money being taken away from them. I really don't like the removal of the limit for vouchers for charter schools. If you're making a couple 300 grand a year, you probably don't need to get a subsidy from the state to get your kid into Park Tudor or wherever. Uh, and I like the idea of trade and the changing in the high school degree program where a lot of people don't need college. Some aren't really going to succeed in that. And the trade is an offering of an awful good job. I did all of it. I had a trade school, 7 out of the 8 quarters for auto mechanics, and the electrics class. Uh, I had to get 3 generators, uh, actually 6 generators, before I could finish rewiring an old 56 Chevy for the electrics class. And the first one burned up half the new wires that I just rewired the car with. So I put the last generator in that finally actually put out the right electricity and drove the car down to the instructor and tossed him the keys, said, I don't want the car. You can use my grades for toilet paper. I'm never going to be an auto mechanic. Uh, Drove for a living for a while and then went back to Ooey Pooey and got a degree in computers and played with computers through Y2K. And then with my hatred for Windows, it had taken over the systems. And so I worked for Now Courier and just drove stuff around. Uh, for education, it's just everybody should be encouraged to be as curious as they can,
Mm.
try and learn all they can. And I'm not sure how you motivate kids and very young adults and adults to continue that, that's what is really needed. So, if anybody wants to talk how you keep people motivated, that would also be another good topic.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that we'll come back to as the conversation goes on. You got a really interesting story, John, going from electrical wiring to computers, and I really connected. I think with what you spoke to, just about like education being something that's like accessible to a wide variety of people, and with there being a wide variety of options available for people. So thank you for speaking to that. Damn, I wanted to hear from Kali, but she just dropped off. Is she still next to you, Dad? All right, maybe they might be busy. Well, yeah. And who else wants to jump in? Maybe Wise, maybe Cass, maybe Kepper Institute could check in and jump in. Whoever that is.
I guess
I'll
I
jump
could.
in, Chi.
Oh,
I'll,
go ahead.
okay,
Go
sorry. No, you
for it.
can jump
Yeah.
in. No, Cass, jump in, please.
Sure. I'll keep it kind of short. Because I feel like a lot of good things have been said about education so far. Some of the things that I kind of wanted to say, but I would add on. Um, I feel like working at a school, all right. Working at a school. I'm an RBT, so I'm a behavioral therapist. So I work with the child in a school, and realizing, especially like here, I don't know if it's the same in Indiana. I haven't been in like a while, but um, hearing about how No Child Left Behind keeps children moving on, no matter if they know how to read or do, or, read on level or do math or, do a math on level. Um, it's a little crazy to me. That's what I learned here. I was talking to to the teacher that my kid, well, my client's teacher, and she was like, "Yeah, I can't hold any of them back because of No Child Left Behind." So I feel like I understand in a way, but at the same time, I just feel like it's doing kids a disservice because if you keep getting moved on and you can't read, the information that's being given, and I do feel like this is why, or this is what kids go through on a daily basis. Like some kids, it's like, why is this child acting like this? And it's like, well, have you thought about like maybe the child couldn't read? Like maybe this child has gotten to seventh grade and he can't read what's on his paper, and I've actually went to school with kids like that. And it's sad. Um, I just feel like, you would think that, maybe, summer school, summer classes, but, that's if the parent wants, their child to go. So, um, I really do think that education is important. Reading is very important. Um, but I do notice that people um, they don't make reading as important as math, which it should be, because it's like if you can't, read the instructions, how can you do the math? So I just, think about things like that. Um, and also moving on to like college education. I don't think people necessarily need it, but it's there because of the connections that you can make. Also, there's a bit of a gatekeeping with it. So you can apply for a job and you can have, especially like being like a software engineer, like if you have all the knowledge of being a software engineer, you've been doing this like almost all your life, but a lot of places they still require you to have a degree in it. No matter, if you went to like a couple, no matter how many boot camps you went to, things like that, which I learned that that's why people went to some boot camps because they were saying that they didn't have the education background. So they went to boot camps and they still didn't get accepted. because they want, some companies want, college educated people. And I just feel like it's a bit of a gatekeeping there. Even with, I've noticed, um, even in the writing world, like you don't think that you need to go to school for, for writing, but there are a couple different positions where they're like, well, did you at least graduate from college? Do you have your, do you have your master's? You know, so I do think college is important somewhat because it's like, especially when people like kind of like gatekeep certain jobs, certain positions for people who have graduated um, college. Um, but I also feel like we do need to focus more on trades because, you know, I feel like what I think let me see his name. What oh yeah, John was saying the motivation. Not everyone has the motivation to go to school for 4 years, you know. Not everyone wants to go to school for 4 years, 4+ years. Um, I feel like that's why trade school is there, but it's kind of sad when, these a lot of these jobs, it's like you have a trade, but it's like, oh, well, we need you to go to college for it instead of, going to school for only, you know, 3 to 5 to 9 months. Um, and I've just been noticing a lot of that going on because some of my friends have went to trade school. Like we've went to trade school, and um, I remember going for a position, I think an office position, which I went to trade school for, and they're like, "Well, do you have your associates? You can, do you have, yeah, do you at least have your associate's degree?" And I'm like, "No, I went to trade school for it." And they're like, "Well, that's not enough education." So I feel like the people who went to trade school, sometimes it's not even enough, um, and you have to eventually, go and at least get like an associate's. Um, I just wish that jobs wouldn't require um, people go to college as much because I mean it's especially people who are millennials. Like we have realized that how expensive college has gotten. Um, our parents or their parents ended up going to college for a lot cheaper than we did, and it's kind of hard to convince a person, especially, the children today, and all college costs are doing is going up. So it's like, you know, I've heard a couple people saying that I don't want to go to college because I don't want to be in debt. My parents are still struggling to pay off their debt to school, you know. And I do think that college is necessary. I do think, this education is necessary because you learn so much, but it's kind of hard when people are making it so expensive so that people can't go at all unless you want to put yourself in a lot of debt. And then it's like, a lot of the times, even like, especially when you go to like fields like education, you're you're literally you're literally putting yourself in debt for years. Um, at sometimes, and I just I wish that America could would I wish that education would be what could be more accessible here. Um, I feel like people think that it's accessible, but it's really not when you think about it. Um, Also with the defunding of public programming, and they're trying to defund Head Start and stuff like that. It's like it's becoming to the point where it's like, um, you know, get as much education as you can possibly pay for, and a lot of us can't pay, So I'm hoping things will change soon, but I'm trying to be optimistic about it, but I'm just not
Yeah.
at this point. I feel like it's done like this for a reason, and it's gonna come a time where I feel like shameless plug Kepper, people like things like this are going to skyrocket because people aren't going to have the money to pay for education. Especially like if you want to study like an art form, or you want to be an artist and going to the creative field, it's not going to be
Yeah.
accessible really. So I feel like places like Pepper are going it's literally going to work out for you guys in the long run because people are curious and they want to keep learning, but they just
For
don't have
sure.
the money to. So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's my
no,
little
we'll
two
we'll talk.
cents.
No, it's all good. Yeah, thank you. I think that there were. I think one of the things that I pulled out from yours was like your piece was like, the need to kind of like be sensitive to the individual situations of like individual students, and not to push people past, what they're ready for, what they're able to do. I heard some of those pieces around like accessibility and the need to like foster curiosity come up. So yeah, thank you for that. We've had a few people join us since we've had a few more people join us. So I'm gonna pass it to them to check in. After that, I want to hear from Kali Ma, who I think is still on here. I want to hear her answer to the question, and then maybe we can keep it rolling from there. So maybe to start off with the check in, I'll pass it to Devin. What up, man? The check in question for today is your number and color for the day. And then when you want to learn something, where do you go?
Hey, buddy. Hi, everyone. Um,
Oh, and introduce yourself as well.
I'm Devin Cummings. I am a instructional assistant at Harrison Hill, and I have always been a lifelong learner. So happy to be here and join in on this conversation about a very important resource, which is education. Feeling about a 7 a day because I was at work. They're getting towards the end of the school year, so it is getting a little hectic. So they are definitely very chaotic. Um, Color is nice green, very placid. I'm feeling very calm. What was did I answer everything?
When you want to learn something, where do you go?
Um, I watch a lot of YouTube essays, or because I work in the library, I just kind of order the books for myself, and I try to stay as close to experts in the field as possible when I'm reading those things.
Hell yeah. Thank you for joining, man. And you can pass it to Mimi, M, or Alvin to check in next.
I will pass it to M.
Color, am I still muted?
You're now unmuted.
Uh, Greetings, everyone. My color is translucent. My number is 11, represents intuition. And the question is, where do I go when I'm trying to get my education on? So I use a multiple number of platforms, sometimes reading, sometimes, of course, YouTube. I also lean heavily on people who have expertise in certain areas. So no one tool I use to explore and learn. Pass it to Alvin.
Okay, I'm feeling like an 8 coffee color, and definitely what M said. Hey, like, you read anything interesting lately? I get a lot of books through M or others, podcasts, etc. But also more recently using things like Gemini to just get, hey, tell me about this topic, or trying to learn stuff like that. So, that is all. And I'll pass to Mimi.
Hey y'all, greetings. I'm feeling like a teal 8.5. And yeah, definitely a variety of sources. I'm a big fan of YouTube University. That's how I learned ukulele and a lot of other stuff. Definitely looking for people who I feel like are good at what I am looking to be good at. Just spending time listening to them and studying their ways, adapting it to my own flavor. And I also find that like when you set an intention I want to learn about this, and then you take steps to pursue it, often the resources to support that journey come to you. You just got to pay attention and be looking for them when they do. Pass it back inside.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us. Um, Hell yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna pass it to Kali to answer this question around what makes a valid or useful education to you. I think Waz was gonna jump in on that as well. So then I'd like to hear from him. And then maybe we can see if anybody else wants to speak to that before we transition to the next question.
Everyone. So my phone's actually on 4% right now. So if it hangs up, I'll try to join back. But um, I believe like growing up, I've always been to believe that knowledge is everywhere, and that you can really learn. You can really learn from anything and anywhere. I've met people who have had a higher education or have been more like have had more education, and they're not always as competent. So I do believe that like you will get a certain amount of education from different places, but like the whole like argument of to go like you need to go to a certain place to receive a generally education. I don't typically agree with that. I think anywhere you can learn something and you can take information out. But the the question is,
What's the question?
oh, where is education valuable? Like, where can you get education from? What do you think is what education is?
Is that different from the checking question?
Yeah. And yeah, so I think that you can get education from anywhere and from anyone or anything. The whole process of trying to filter out and trying to like actually receive it is where education really, or information, knowledge in general, come from. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Don't name any names, but maybe could you give an example of like, uh, you know,
Oh,
something you've seen where, somebody is like, just like isn't well rounded in
yeah.
their learning.
I've met
I believe she said not competent.
I've met
Yeah, of that non-competence. Yeah.
I've met like um a large group of adults that might not take care of their bodies health wise, like they just might put, and for anybody that doesn't, you live your life obviously, but I've met a lot of adults who my mom was just telling me about this occasion that she had where one of her fellow colleagues didn't know the difference between a chipmunk and a monkey, and she went to college. She has her master's degree. I've met adults who try to belittle children, or not children, but try to belittle other people's opinions without actually like trying to think about what they're trying to say. I've met adults. Oh, sorry, I'm using adults for this example, but I've met a lot of older people who don't really take in other people's opinions. They think that they're just right most of the time, and then they're very small minded. I think that's also another thing. You can't really receive education with a small mind,
Mm.
or a non-innovative mind. If you're not innovative, then you can't learn anything, and that's just how it is. And yeah, I've met a large amount of people who just don't understand things, and that doesn't make you not, smart or anything. That just means that you don't understand it. I've met adults who like, um, let me think. A common misconception is that, well, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's a large group of people, whether they're adults or, younger kids or children, who don't understand a lot of things. That like, I know a lot about biology. I know a lot about our, our global economy. I know a lot about what is the word for that? Our economics and stuff. And I know I've met a lot of other adults that don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you don't know something, you don't know. So I wouldn't say I'm more educated, but in that field, yes, I am more educated than a lot. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
And what grade are you in?
I'm a freshman, but I'm about to be a sophomore.
Nice.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you for that, Kylie. I think a big thing that I took away from yours was the importance of like, an open mind. And that important the importance of like that curiosity for being able to learn and how, somebody may be well informed factually, but still lack that open mindedness that you need to like expand
Yeah.
your
And then
knowledge
also
base.
to go off a little bit of that, what people don't also understand, that having literary education is just important as in like knowing where you are in your surroundings, knowing how to
Mm,
defend yourself, and just sorry, it's getting messy out here, but just knowing your surroundings and just more general context of information rather than just like knowing how to read or knowing how to do math or yeah, book smart, I guess
yeah.
that's another word
Yeah.
for it.
I think we heard Cass speak to that as well. Can Fing, you wanted to jump in with something, and then I wanted to pass it to Wise.
Sure. This is gonna be really short. I just want to say I really agree with what Kali's saying. I think that's a great point.
I'm
And
so sorry, dear. It's a little hard to hear you.
oh, can you hear me better now? Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that I really do agree with Kali's point. I think that was, a very well said point, and kind of how I wrapped it around my head is like for someone to be a more intelligent or overall better person is not necessarily knowing facts, but having a combination of curiosity, empathy, and deference to where you can admit to not knowing things. I think the how all three of those things go hand in hand is, having your own expertise and also having the curiosity to want to seek out that knowledge from people regardless of their age or background. I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
important. So I just
Yeah.
want to thank Kali for your point as well.
Yeah.
One more
If
from Callie. Uh, some of us old folks tend to think we know all of it and we've settled in, and we need to be more open minded about the whole situation. Uh, for Cass, people don't need college degrees. I've talked to HR people through the years, and some of them will admit that it's not the actual education, it's the fact that you actually stuck with something for 4 years. Uh,
Mm,
any job you get into, you're not going to know what you're doing until they train you on the job, even if you've got a degree in whatever the qualification supposedly was. They're going to retrain you on how their actual company and that job actually works. Maybe if you're into the master's or a doctorate, that a nuclear physicist probably needs to have a high degree, but the vast majority of the rest of us are just fine. Uh, the alternate point on that is a college education used to be broad based. You got into reading Plato and you might learn a little bit of Latin, and the humanities have kind of been dropped out of college education now. So it's more give us all your money and we'll give you a piece of paper that qualifies you to get into jobs. The only thing I see good about it is Doge is not going to last that long. So, yeah, all the cuts to Head Start or whatever won't last forever. And our great governor, who I'm not really thinking he's great, but he at least, I think, said that a lot of the positions that currently need college degrees should not. And I think he's trying to change that. So, at least a lot of state jobs, you probably won't need a college degree if you've got the boot camp or whatever kind of training that you already know how to do what they're talking about, and you're going to learn their details once you get in there. So I'm more
Let,
positive on that.
let me jump. I got something to say, Chin.
sure.
So I appreciate, first of all, the perspective, John. I appreciate your perspective. I think it is important that we challenge, the status quo. To take there was a time when college was sold as the primary way. As soon as you graduate high school, you need to go here, do this. Is how it goes. However, um, I just say as a person been in education for quite some time that I guess the only pushback I'll say to that, John, is that when you are in community and people who are, traditionally underserved, underrepresented, it is challenging to shut down any opportunity or resource for learning education, be it college, be it whatever. So one, I say it's important that we get wherever the opportunity to learn is, people, especially people who may or may not have had the opportunity to take advantage. But more importantly, we have to view education, I think, differently from an empowered space. So whether it's college, whether it's trade school, whether it's on the streets, whether it's parent, every opportunity that we're experiencing is opportunity for you to learn. So it's less about the content in terms of what college is teaching, but more about what happens to an individual that is able to be resilient enough to make it to the end of a degree program, to make it to the end of a certification program and do well. I think there are other skills that we can highlight in these places. These college degrees and trade schools, those are all containers for people to grow and improve. And I think at the crux of education is the opportunity for humans to become better, to learn, to engage in information and move forward. And that can happen anywhere, any given time, for any resource all the time. So that's what I want to add.
Yeah. Wise, did you still want to jump in?
The streets give you common sense education, and that's absolutely critical. You got common sense, and then you've got book learning, and IQ is a number that doesn't really mean much of squat. It's more about your motivation. Somebody that goes through trade school or a boot camp and makes it through and then keeps chasing it, they should be able to get in and make a decent living and have a great life.
This is I'll say this. So the question is like, what is education? That's what you said, Chin.
Yeah.
So for me, what I tell my students is that what I'm teaching you is not so much of the content, but the skills to learn the content, the skills to be self-sufficient, to gain self-mastery of, what it is that you want to learn. Now, if you just asking wise in general, education is about self-cultivation, the opportunity to learn things about not only yourself, but others, but how those things that you learn impact you and such forth. I do believe that it's important that as an educator myself, I think it's important that we get perspective on education, that there are many forms of learning. And as an educator, I think we should be practicing or attempting to practice to learn all of those different forms and ways of education, because if you know students, they all learn differently, such forth. So there's many ways that students can learn, and there's many ways that we can teach whatever it is. So with that, I think college is important. I think street knowledge is important, but I think it all goes back at the end of the day is that you also have to work. I can't learn it for you. People have to work. You have to want to do it. You have to want to learn it, regardless of what level of education that you may seek or that you feel is legitimate or valid. So with that being said, I think it's all valuable. Knowledge, understanding, you can get it from anywhere. It's all valuable. I think, again, I've always said that when you're at war, you do not have the luxury of getting rid of any resource that can help you win. It's all on the table. Everything's up for grabs. So in that context, I think everything is important in how we learn, regardless if you learned it from YouTube, Chat GPT, work it to your benefit. Use the leverage and work it to your benefit into ways that it maximizes your learning. So yeah, that's what I would have to say.
Yeah.
A comment on Weiss. We need to get the parents to help motivate their kids so they do want to learn. I don't know that individuals automatically want to learn how to learn or want to continue having that kind of motivation. I think the parents need to have some kind of influence on that to help their kids.
Did anybody else want to speak to that question around what is education? Because if not, I think it'd be maybe good to, that piece that John just brought up, this idea.
One piece I'll add is
Yeah,
that
go for it.
human beings come in the world, I believe, curious. And so curiosity is really the root of any kind of education, to be curious. And then whether we like it or not, a lot of what happens in our social world is we beat the curiosity out of our children and our families. But if in an ideal world, you've got environments that don't have walls also that encourage learning from all lived experiences and a lot of intergenerational learning, young learning from the old learning from the young, and some of those particular pieces. That's about all I'll add right now. It's been interesting so far. I'm unfortunately I'm at the drop off of here because I got an AI education to get on. As an old guy, I'm learning about AI. I know how all you guys love AI, don't you? That's for you, Chin.
Preach in.
That's
Not all of us.
all I got on that.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah, I wanted to maybe for the next question I wanted to, more on this point around like curiosity. Just like, how do you cultivate that in people? I think like M said that like folks come into the world curious. So I think I'd love to hear if people agree with that, what people see as, you know, the relationship that people have with curiosity in general. And then, whether it's something that you've been taught to repress or whether that it's something that you have to learn, like how do you cultivate curiosity and encourage people to be curious and want to learn? Anybody can speak to either of those questions.
I believe that a key, like, fundamental piece of that is patience and having the patience to answer those questions. I think because they do come in the world so naturally curious, you have to have the wherewithal and the patience to understand it because this is somebody who is learning for the first time. You are the person that is put in front of them to explain that, and so having patience and understanding that these are people who are learning for the first time, as are you, um, to help you learn and stay curious as well.
Yeah. So I think like what I'm hearing from that is really more about like how to not stifling that inherent curiosity, by embracing it, and like not resisting it when you encounter it.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And one thing I also wanted to mention, like a personal experience. My brother graduated from high school in 2023, and when I attended his, top 100 ceremony, um, all the all the graduating students had the question of, what do you want to do when you graduate? What are you trying to do? So I'm sitting there seeing 100 17, 18-year-olds, and all of the answers to that question was build wealth, accumulate wealth, have a comfortable life. And what that made me think is, a lot of the curiosity and desire for education comes from having living in a world where you don't have to worry about material comfort. And I think right now we're dealing with children and teenagers who are scared. They are very observant, understanding the type of environment that they're living in currently. And so their whole mindset, and when we talk about education and curiosity, is just basic survival. They don't want to be poor.
Kind of like a
They
scarcity mindset.
exactly, like they see how the economy or just how education is shifting. There's been several conversations here about the devaluation of the humanities for STEM, and that has taken away a lot of that curiosity because a lot of humanities liberal arts courses deal with things like empathy, with uh, I used this word before, but deference, and the ability to just understand others a lot better. But when you take that out of the way, and we're probably going to get in this conversation a bit more, and with the introduction of, AI being more commonplace in a lot of classrooms, the combination of fear, the need to survive, I think, we're starting to see a loss of those soft skills, and loss of those soft skills, and also just moving away from wanting to read, wanting to understand, because that's the importance of reading, not just being able to phonetically look at words on a page and say, okay, CAT spell cat, but more so being able to read words on a page and understand what you're reading, And so I feel like once sorry, I have a lot of thoughts right now. I'm just trying to bring them together. So
All good.
ultimately, what I'm thinking is how we cultivate this curiosity is creating a whole community that has a vested interest, because we all do have a vested interest in public education. And whether or not you have children yourself, but if you are an older person or an older adult, regardless of your age, if you're in some way being in communities where you're able to be excited, show joy to people who are younger than you, that will be really important for continuing cultivating the education, just being that source of hope when it just seems so scarce right now.
Yeah.
So I just like to put my 2 cents in, but I
Go for
completely
it,
agree
please.
with that. I think that in like a lot of places, like I've seen me personally, I think that I'm like a very curious person. I do ask a lot of questions, especially when like when I don't know something or when I want to know more about something. But I've seen like when students are not just like scared because of like where we live in right now, but scared because they don't want to get a question wrong, or they're nervous that like the people around them are, going to make fun of them. So I think that like as a teacher or an educator, it's very important that you're not just like excited yourself, but you're also providing a space where everyone understands that it's okay to like make mistakes. And even though that's like a very obvious pattern, I feel like that even though some educators believe in that it is okay to make mistakes, that they don't always do a good job of invoking it and making it clear. And yeah, but also like when it comes to cultivating curiosity, I think that it's just as important for an educator to make it clear that they're also interested in learning. I know there's like a lot of, or make it interesting that like it's an interesting topic. Like, I go to Heron High School, and we're required to take a Latin class, and it's probably one of my least favorite classes. My teacher, he's not a bad teacher, but I don't think that he does a very good job of making it interesting. I feel like when he tries to teach it, it's very scripted. So it's just something that it's just like a pattern that he does. And I don't think that it's very personal. And I obviously, like, if you're an educator for a bigger school, that's not always possible. But I think that making a topic more personal or easy, like, um, more cultivating, I think that children would be more prone to be engaged in the topic, which allows the children to just be interested in a lot more things. They have a higher standard of what they want to learn and how they want to learn things, especially when you go from teacher to teacher. So, I think I don't know who said this, but oh, who was just talking? What is your name?
Camping.
Say it again.
It's canfing, like soda can, and
Oh, that's so cute.
thing, ing. So yeah,
Yeah,
canfing.
Canthing was saying, it was creating a community where that you can make children want to learn. Or I think that's, yeah, I think, yeah. I think also with that, no, oh yeah, I think also with that, making a community where teachers like a yeah, making sure that teachers know how to teach properly and effectively, so it engages kids. And yeah, because I think that that all helps with just cultivating curiosity, with kind of leaving more for kids to like ask questions rather than just giving it all like a script and just putting it all out there.
We need to make you a teacher.
Yeah, Kylie,
Charlie.
I think something that really stood out about what you said to me is this idea, I hear this idea around like personalizing the lessons, personalizing the education coming up. It kind of makes me think about like, standardization, like obviously I don't know, maybe not so obviously, but like personally, I do think it is good to have sort of like a baseline. I do think that we kind of need sort of like a basic
Absolutely.
level of knowledge, to function in a shared community, whatever that base level is. But like,
Mm,
even Kepra has like our text that we encourage everybody to read and interact with at some point, even if you
right.
don't like necessarily like require tests on them. But at the same time, I don't think that everything needs to be standardized. I think there
Yeah.
should be still be room for, people to choose their own path, choose
Mm,
their own passion. Um, Something else that you made me think about is like just like the importance of modeling.
mm,
I think that like a lot of the time it's easier for people to learn from you when they can tell that you're invested in what you're teaching about. I think that like passion is kind of contagious in that way.
Right.
And so I think that like, in order to inspire curiosity, you have to be a curious person yourself. So, I don't
And
know, maybe somebody could talk about how you like cultivate your own curiosity as well.
right. And then also, I think someone was talking about this earlier, but I've went to a private school, I've been to a public school, I've been to a charter school, never really a big school, but when I went to my charter school, the charter school I go to now, it was a lot bigger from what I've gone to. And with each school, I've had bad teachers and I've had good teachers. So I think that obviously there is a difference with public and IP schools and stuff. There I've seen it, but like just teachers in general, I think that some, I don't think should change because I have some amazing teachers now, but I also think that some teachers who haven't been very connecting can also like change their narrative or change their ways or just how they present themselves. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in on that question about curiosity?
Couple of classes that are really hard to make interesting. If you're taking calculus or string theory, it's kind of hard to change that to a personal presentation. In probably 25 years of sitting in classrooms, I've had two really good teachers. Uh, the vast majority of what you learn, they can, if the teacher is good enough, make it personal so you're happy to be in there. Uh, there's very few classes that are like Latin or string theory that you I don't know how they'd make that happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it also kind of reminds me of what Can Fing was talking about, just with this idea that, like, you know, a lot of people don't go into their field or their trade or whatever because they have a connection to it. They go into it because that's what they feel like they need to do to survive. And so maybe that makes it hard to want to pass knowledge on and to be able to pass knowledge on as well. If that's the world we live in, that's the world we live in. That's just something that we got to contend with and work with. But maybe if we could, because like I don't know, I feel like somebody has to be passionately into quantum physics. Somebody has to have a personal connection to string theory and want to study it for more than just like the money or the fame or the acclaim. So I think it's about like finding and uplifting like stories like that. Like maybe not a lot of people can connect with this on a personal level, but if somebody can, that means somebody else can too. So. And hey, I think that it's also a question of like, if nobody really cares about this, then why are we doing it?
But I also think there's I guess I'm thinking on a much smaller scale, only because I work at an elementary school. So I'm thinking on a more personal level. I think there needs to be more contingency between, school and parents, because I think
Mm,
there is a big disconnect between people who are against intellectualism and people who don't have time to learn and care about intellectualism.
yeah,
So I would
yeah.
say repairing that relationship is another way to help cultivate and maintain curiosity within the child. And I and speaking to the passion, I think that's also why culture is so important
Mm,
in your personal like fundamentals as an educator, and because that who you serve makes it easier to connect with
yeah.
when you have those things in mind too, when you know who you are and how you want to run your classroom based on those principles.
So on that question of culture, because I think I heard Can Fing talk about that a little bit as well with this piece around like a community that values education. Like how do you build that? And especially I'm thinking about like, how do you bridge some of those divides? Because I think that like a lot of the discourse that I've seen recently has been around like, oh well, I don't want these people teaching my children this, you know, or I think that they should be teaching this, but they're not. And then the teachers are like, oh well, these parents are fucking idiots. How can I teach their kids if they're stupid too? So it's like,
Mhm.
like there's a lot of like divide between like the people who are educating the kids during the day, the people got that got to take them home at the end of the day, what's valuable, what's not, what we should be teaching, what we shouldn't be, how we should be teaching it, so like how do you bridge those divides and build that community of like people who care?
It's these damn phones.
It is these damn phones, but it's also, I think, realizing we all want the same thing for this child, and that is to be able to be curious and be able to grow and learn and think for themselves and think critically at that. Um, and so I think a lot of it is we need to stop being so defensive in our stances, especially as educators, because I think a lot of it is that it's not that people don't care about learning. Is that a lot of people are in survival mode. They don't have time to care about learning. Is like if there's four of you, I don't, and I'm working third shift. I don't have time to make sure that your reading log is in your backpack. That's not something that is super high on my priority list. So this idea that reading is important in my home culture is not going to translate to school, because it's not something that is feasible right now in the home. So I think, at least from an educator standpoint, coming off of that high horse a little bit, where in understanding that it's not necessarily about not caring about education, but people are just trying to survive, might make things a little bit easier to repair that relationship.
Yeah.
I just want to say I 100% agree with you, Devin. And even though I'm not a teacher myself, I was talking about how I'm part of the host program in Wayne Township and go in to help kids with their literacy rates. And yeah, I think everyone within the community, parent, sister, uncle, neighbor, does have a vested interest in public education and just cultivating that, because I think, we don't realize childhood is not that long. This 15-year-old you're teaching or you're giving value to, in 3 years, they're going to be legal adults. These are people who are going to be voting with you, driving with you, working with you. And so, it does require a level of sacrifice to be able to, reach out to the people around you, whether that be a younger cousin or someone like that. So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
It's kind of like show me the money. That's always kind of been the core of a lot of this stuff, that we've got such a wealth divide in this country. It's beyond ridiculous. Uh, I'm not seeing it getting a lot better in the next 3.5 years, but we'll see. The school that I went to had counselors whenever you wanted them. When I got in high school, everybody got free driving lessons, and now I heard they cost like $500. And we had more money in the 50s. The tax rate on the rich people was 94, 96%,
That
and everybody
post-war,
was doing wonderful.
yeah.
Uh, that's not a very hopeful set of comments, but hopefully we'll get past that. And there's enough people like the people here that are trying to make things better. So good
Well,
point.
yeah. I think Devin, were you gonna jump back in? Were you gonna say something?
No, I just really am starting to think more so about like how we create stability for these things, because I just see how important home life is to
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we care about it. Like, if that is in and out of the picture, of course my focus is not going to be on, I don't care about reading and writing. I want to make sure that there's food on the table, that like all these things are taken care of before I can even function to read. I'm hungry and I'm sleepy, bro. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think that's more where my mind is heading now. I think that now that I've kind of expressed what I think. Now I'm just kind of thinking of solutions now.
Yeah. I,
Everybody called the governor and tell him to put the food for kids back into the budget.
yeah.
I
They
got
were
a bar about
given
that.
they were given food to kids that had school lunch programs for free during the school year, but now that school's out, they used to give them, I don't know what it was, $120 a month maybe, but they actually could eat all summer. And that's just so bad to take that away from them.
Mhm.
Governor could change that.
Yeah, I think that you're both kind of like touching on like the economic and political aspect, which is like very important. And this idea that like, a lot of what has made the education system effective in the past has been, that extra support that means that, maybe people don't have to work as often, or maybe there are better resources for kids during and after school, that have been like, some of it has just kind of like faded away as some of that like post World War II prosperity has sort of faded away, and then other parts have been like very systematically like taken away, But
But
I
I also
think that
think, oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, go for it.
I think the world has also just gotten so anti-child. There's no like, there's nothing
Mm,
for kids. There's no like websites for them to get on. They're trying to kill cool math. Like, there's no places for them to go hang out at. There's no cyber cafes for them. Like, and we
yeah,
don't want kids in our face. So where are they supposed to go?
yeah. Yeah, and I think that the other thing that I was just gonna say, Devin, to your point about like solutions, I think it is about like, if the resources aren't going to come from the government, well, then we got to just find somewhere else for them to come from. But I think it really does come down to like, how do we get more support, for stuff for children to do after school so that the parents don't have to be, so worried about like what's going on with them during that time. How do we get extra reading support and extra math support, good food, into their bellies and stuff like that, And I think that, I think obviously there's a lot of historical examples, the Black Panthers, of course, their free reading programs, free lunch programs, which is actually where the U.S. government got the idea, So, yeah, so I think it's like there's a lot of like, but there's like, it's about like once again, I think Can Fing like really hit it on the head here. Like this community, it's not just it can't. It's like more than a community that cares about education, but it's a community that's able to like mobilize resources to support education. You know, even if you gotta scrape and grind to pull it together. Um, yeah. And then maybe because we've AI has come up a few times. Um I think may and so I want to maybe like, when we talk about like that community that cares about education, I think like we also have to talk about like, how our educational resources are shaped and maintained, because honestly, all the problems with AI are the same problems that like any other educational resource or tool has. We don't control what goes up on Google. Google does, we don't control what's in the encyclopedia. Whoever is publishing it does. There are resources like Wikipedia where you can sort of like go in and directly add and contribute and edit things. There's a whole process there. But even those, are struggling right now because, they can't find funding or they're facing these copyright issues and people trying to take them down, the Internet Archive, blah, 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 blah. So I think that, like, in terms of the technology that we use to support our learning, in terms of like the tools that we use to educate ourselves, even like in terms of public schools, these political institutions that shape, public education. How does our community take control of those things that already exist, and take control of shaping them, or what does it look like to build our own resources that we can directly control? I see a hand from Nas. Come on, man.
On that piece about how do we use the systems at play to get us where we're trying to go, I think it might be about changing our relationship to education. I know when I was growing up, I was able to go to my elementary school during summer and get me a free lunch, and that was a really important part of my day. I went with my cousin, we would both go, and mom would say, "Be back before the lights out." And that's different now. That's not an aspect. You don't get childcare. You don't get that extra time as a kid. at elementary schools. And I think to ground this a little bit, if we look at looking at education as
I try not hard to hear you, Nas.
you good, let me get right. Let me get right. Oh
I
wait, can you hear me now? A little better.
think it's a little better.
Let me try that. All right, there we go. There we go. I'm coming through the speaker now. Oh, that was on me, y'all. I'll wrap up quick. I think looking at our relationship to the educational structures that are in place as kids, I said when I was younger, I was able to go up to my elementary school and grab me a free lunch during summer. It was a really important part of my upbringing. Felt like a sense of community was there. Um, High school looks different. You're able to go to sports, you learn different things. College looks different as well. We touched on how different paths give you different opportunities at the end of it. Um, I think now, Chin, you spoke to it a little bit, how schools have changed from that social service of a place for your kids to go after school, daycare, things of that nature. And now it's different. Now it's just you go here, you learn, and then you send them home. Devin, you spoke a little bit to how the home life can even impact how a student comes into that day. If they're hungry, they're tired, they're not ready to learn about World War II. I'm sorry, it's not going to get through to them. I think this conversation, what could help us is as a community, looking at what are we sending our kids to? What do you expect from them when they come home? What type of energy should they come with, and should they be resonating with while they're in those spaces? And really looking at what is the goal of education at the end of it. We talked a lot about curiosity and sparking curiosity, keeping that going. And I think when I've been sitting over there, I've been thinking a little bit about how it also is really empowering for that kid that is tired and needs some food. It might be nice for them to come to school and learn and have a space where they can experience and learn something different and change up their worldview from that going home, hustle and bustle every day. And it all really just goes into what are we looking for and what are we trying to get out of these spaces at the end of the day. Um, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So I guess like what I'm kind of hearing from that is just like, maintaining more of an internal standard about the quality of the experience and the information that, our people are receiving in their educational experiences and endeavors. Yeah. I think that makes sense. Yeah. I think that that is I think that to me that applies especially to this conversation around AI, just because I feel like one of the different AI tools work differently. There's this one that I've heard about called Perplexity that actually like cites as sources, which I think they should all do that really. But I think that it's just like in general, I think one of the dangers is that like you know AI is kind of like marketed as this like unbiased distributor and like aggregator of information, but anything that's created by human beings is going to be biased, and so if you aren't aware of that, you'll just you'll take on anybody's worldview and perspective, and I think that like one of the dangers is that like and once again, not unique to AI. If somebody isn't going to fact check, they're not going to fact check, regardless of where they're getting their information from. But I definitely think that, like, uh, you know, there is uh, uh, being able to say, like being able to look at a variety of information and being able to like understand that no one perspective is ever really going to give you the whole, it goes back to that curiosity, you know, verify, double verify, get the whole picture, from as many sources as possible. I think that and to understand those sources and how they relate to each other, I think is very important. And I do think that like some of this new technology makes it easy to forget to do that. Even though you kind of already you have to be willing to do that in the first place. So
And a question I have to people on here who are educators, who are teachers, especially the younger students. Um, I know there's been a prevalence of different types of uses of technology and now AI tools in the classroom. But I was wondering, is there still an incorporation of like tactile style learning where kids are playing games or any type of um, physical building, just the act of like, touching things, making things with their hands, is that still incorporated in most of teaching? I'm not sure if anyone on can answer that right now, but I'm just curious if that's still happening. I just, I was in elementary school. I graduated high school in like 2016, so I still am old enough to remember a time where we did have technology. We definitely had computer labs. People were just now getting Chromebooks and things like that, but there were still a lot of, tactile practices that we did where we had learning outside of strictly technology based systems. So if there's kind of a way to get back to that, and obviously we can't get rid of technology, it's extremely useful, but just the use of both. I'm just curious.
I mean, yeah, I'm in all around schools, and definitely there's still, yes, there's definitely still a inundation of, I just say whole child tools that are still being, incorporated, especially with younger children. And I think more so now because there's an increase in, tons of increases in some of the learning disabilities as well. So you've got more and more parents that are seeking Montessori and alternative programs, which are all based, utilizing didactic materials and things like that. So the answer to your question is yes. I think that the challenge is not looking at the technology as a replacement or a supplant for current, but what educators will have to do is partner with the technology to figure out, provide the best modalities for learning. I would say that if there is a perception that technology is just taking over everything, and that's true in the schools, but what really has happened is it's not really the schools that have allowed the technology to take over. It's what's coming into the schools, and schools having to adjust to what's being sent home from schools. It is illegal right now to have a cell phone, especially in high schools. It is against the law for students to have cell phones within schools right now in classrooms. Do you think that's stopping? I was at Tech the other day. You think there's one less cell phone at the school? Absolutely not. The school allows them. I mean, has to bring them in because parents are telling their children, "Hey, you need your phone because I need to get in touch with you." Students are living life outside, and so the technology is less viewed as a supplant for the education, but more as it's become a part of our society, just like drinking water, and therefore schools have no choice but to, interact and intertwine with it.
Waz, you want to jump in on that?
So I would agree with Khalil. Look here, I think it's I mean it's ridiculous to create a law demanding students put phones up now after decades of phone usage. I mean, one of the things that I was explaining to colleagues is that the reality is we live in an age of school shootings, and a lot of the times parents want to be able to have contact with their school with their children if something did like that happen, right? So we live in an age of school shootings. We also live in an age where parents need to get in contact with their kids possibly at all times. So I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I think they could have came up with a better compromise. And to be honest with you, I think you either leave this in the district's hands, the school's hands, or the teacher's hands. I don't. I mean, to make it an issue and to blame phones for gaps and interventions missed of children's learning, that's ridiculous. Look, a lot of these children were far behind when before cell phones when existed. Our public school system has always been shit. I think Khalil said it years ago. The one thing about our society is that we don't invest in the human experience, and that starts with like pre-K, early childhood, right? So, and for me, education starts at home. I mean, shit. I mean, if you're looking to take your kid, if you're looking for your kids to go to school and learn about your history, who you are, to be identity, to know their identity, then you're out of luck. I mean, you're literally out of luck. You just don't have enough teachers there that are able to, and those teachers don't have enough resources there to teach that child holistically. So the reality is, the true learning starts at home. For me, schools are social hubs where children should go and be around diverse communities and cultures of other children like themselves, learning what it means to be a friend, what it means to be in a community and a culture of learning and a culture of connection and belonging. The reality is, as teachers, we're not educating every day. We're therapists, we're uncles, we're mothers, we're fathers. I mean, to a lot of those children. A lot of those children come in with issues that are beyond our help. So we should create safe spaces at the times. Half the time, when I am teaching, a part of my day is just listening to the angst and the worries and the anxieties of those children. And we should value those as adults. If we're true educators, you connect with those students. The only way that you can actually educate is by connecting and knowing who your students are. That is important. And then going back, learning has to be fun. I mean, studies have said it. You learn your best when you're having fun. And now, what does that look like? I don't know. Depends on the school, the grade, the age. Depends on particularly the teacher. If they're up to the task, do they have the skill sets and the necessary effectiveness and agency to want to learn how to be a fun and engaging and interactive teacher. So, with all that being said, I forget the question, but that's kind of my philosophy on education and what I think about phones in schools. Like, I don't think it's as much as a problem as what people make it out to be, and it should not be a scapegoat as to why children are not learning optimally. I think it's both home, I think it's both system, and I think it's other causalities that this conversation is just we just don't have enough time to get into. It stems from.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm definitely hearing both from you, Wise, and you, Dad, is this idea of like, at the end of the day, um, kind of like the decision making is not really in the right, like the decision making responsibility isn't necessarily in the hands of the people who are going to be dealing with the consequences of some of those decisions, who are really like on the ground and affected by those decisions, like because the parents or the teachers or the students didn't decide to ban the phones from the schools, did they? Like who did make that decision, and what's their stake in it?
Oh,
Um,
I would say this, Chan. When you create a system that is based off metrics, data, the bottom line,
mhm.
a profit, this is what you get. You get a dysfunctionality and a toxicity that you know it's disgusting to think that it's impactful on the children, the students. I mean, at the end of the day, if this is truly about empowering young people to become the best versions of themselves daily, right, then this is a horrible way to do it, through metrics, through IQs, right? Through a set, through tests. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some type. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some type of accountability or assessment of how effective a teacher is or what mastery of the content. I think all of those are important because those are, to me, those are all measures of accountability, making sure that everyone is staying sharp and they're giving the best versions of themselves in their particular skill set. Yet, I don't think that you're going to find um, how a child is going to learn 5 to 10 years or 3 or 5 years from now through data from this year. You're not going to find that. Some children figure it out later on, and that's fine, and that's education. They figure it out later. Your job is just to plant the seed and just facilitate the learning, help them, again, build in the skills for them to be able to learn. That's your job as an educator, to facilitate, pull out of them what they know and add what it is that can help them grow in what they know. So yeah.
yeah. I see a hand from John, and then I'm gonna put the last question for the day out there, and we'll wrap up.
Quick one, I hope. Um, Bottom up is usually the right way. Weiss has that straight. The closer you are to the problem, the more likely you are to actually come up with a good solution. Top down, I don't know. If you're paving all the streets, you don't want everybody to have to pave their own street in front of them. Uh, collect all the money and pass the money from the top down to where it looks like it's needed. Pass laws if the local is really doing wrong, evil, ugly things, then maybe we need that to kick in there and have a top down doing it. Uh, I don't have good solutions. I'm an old fart. I never had any kids. but I've always put education at the top. It's not Social Security or Medicare or whatever. It's always been education because that's where we need to start to improve society. The people are the ones that'll do it, and education is what helps the people.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, so the last thing I'm gonna put out there, and maybe we can, this will probably be the last question that we'll have time for, but would love to hear, especially folks who haven't spoken in a while on this one, but anybody can go. But like, what is Wise use this language around like empowerment, so like, what is an education system that's built around empowerment, for students, for teachers, for parents? What does that look like? What does it take to support that?
So, Chan, let me go because I'm gonna have to head out. Word the question again. Like, what does a system of empowerment look like in terms of education?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look here. Her name is Canthine, right there. I mean, I think or I believe Cass has said it. One of these two wonderful ladies have said it. It's Kepra. I mean, if you really want to add, look at the model of Kepra. I mean, you come in, and the whole idea is self empowerment through self mastery. So that's what you help. You help people learn how to cultivate themselves. You know what I'm saying? You help people understand how community is important and how you grow and how you mature. You know, it was interesting, Chin, your dad had put me onto a book some weeks ago that I finished reading some weeks ago. And Kepler read it, but I just now finished it. Is not the knowledge illusion, while we never think alone.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is that individually your accumulative knowledge and practice means nothing because it just doesn't contribute. It has no contribution to the group. It's what you do for your community, meaning what you do for others, that shapes your identity and shapes the environment around you. And hopefully the outcome of that is that everyone is cultivating themselves to be better versions of themselves because of their contribution to to the community. It's alchemy, right? You're willing to sacrifice something to become a better version and attain something that is of your grand desire, right? And if your grand desire is to be a better version of yourselves today, then it's a must that you sacrifice what it is that you're gifted and talented with to empower others. So with that being said, I think that's what self-empower. I think that's what education should do. Teach children, teach people how to cultivate yourself. What do those steps look like? And be models and examples of that. We talk about effective teaching. Effective teaching is not just intellectualization of content and material. Intellectualization is being professional, being accountable, showing the examples of principles and values and things that you stand on, right? So with that being said, not only talking it, but walking it. It's being exemplified of that and empowering others through that example. So that's what I would have to say. I really do appreciate you inviting me last week, Chan. I'm proud of you, man. You're a former student of mine. That's what makes me really proud. And I was proud of Kali too, seeing her intellectualize some stuff. Former student of mine. To all the NY Africas, a former student of mine. I am a proud teacher of all the NY Africas like that. So shout out to everybody. Thank you for having me on, and I wish
Thank
everybody
you,
the
Waz.
best and stay safe out there.
Great to have you, man.
I just piggyback on what Wise said, and I do agree that um, all the things he said, yes, and I do agree that Kepler has a strong educational model. But I think, well, I say not but, and I think that it's important to, if you're really thinking about for the purpose of education and what Wise said, to empower people to provide skills and so forth, then it's going to look different in everywhere. The educational model will be different because it will be in a amalgamation of the community that which it's serving. And so I think education should be local. It should be locally and culturally, developmentally appropriate one. And it should not be confined to walls and to just physical structures. Community should be engaged in understanding and learning the needs of its, it just for a sense of logistics and practicality and all those things, it makes sense to educate and to be responsible for the area in which you stay in and the community you are in. And so the needs are different from community to community. So I would say that the educational model, not a ubiquitous model, but one that maybe maybe ubiquitously focuses on empowerment and self-sustainment and skill building.
Devin, were you gonna jump in?
I
Thank
was
you,
just going to speak to something that Kalima said earlier, and that was just like making it a space and allowing a space for it to be okay to make mistakes and okay to not know things and be unsure and not be confident in those things. That was really it. It was a really small thing, but I think that one goes along. It's just things that we build out confidence, can also make them such a confident learner. Like can translate to how they feel about learning.
Yeah.
Great point.
Dad, is Kylie still with you? She want to speak on this question of empowerment and what that looks like in education?
Hold on, let's see. Do you want to say anything about education being empowering? Anything?
Education is empowering.
Okay, they're asking for you to say something. And Devin just what are you doing?
You put your phone on.
First of all, put my phone back on the chart and answer the question. Relax.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm
You're
not
on there now.
Oh, shoot. Oh, sorry, everyone. We don't forgot. Where's the, yeah, so I believe that, what? I believe that, what's the question? Excuse me.
Yeah. What is a system of education that's, empowering for everybody, empowering for students, teachers, parents? What does that look like to you? What's
Um,
needed to support it?
a community that cares about you. I don't think that I'd be able to learn or even want to learn without talking or without having like my friends and my family. And I know like some of you guys are educators and I'm sure you have talkative students in your class, but like me, I am a very talkative student in class. Like I've got logs and stuff
Really?
for that. I'm very talkative. Yes, I actually don't stop talking. But I think all in all, my friends especially, like they really help you want to learn. I have friends that always try to push me to be my best and we have we're very competitive when it comes to that. But just having like a system of uh peers that want what's best for you and that will, and parents too, siblings, like all my siblings, not to like gas anybody's heads up, but they all like have lived to a very high standard in my opinion. They've all done really pretty good in school, so I've always like, if not like not to like be like them, but just knowing that like in my family especially, I know that there's a lot of expectations. So I guess being put to like a very high, what's that, a very high standard, I feel like that helps. It is a lot of it's a lot of pressure, but I've never really had parents that will ground me because of my grades. But like if there's something going on, then they'll ask or, try to figure out what needs to happen so I can get a grade up. I've never really had low grades, but like if something is going on or I'm not understanding a topic, I've never felt pressured or scared to have a bad grade. But, just like believing in yourself, like knowing in yourself that you want to achieve the best that you can. I think that like my family has helped with that a lot. Um, I think that when I'm in class and I know I have friends near me, I think that always helps just because like it's like a support system. So if I don't understand something, I feel like it's very helpful to look at my friend and be like, do you understand this? Do you not understand this? And even if they don't, it's also like that level of like, hey, like I understand you. Like I also don't get this. And just the feeling that you can learn with someone, like learning together in a in a group or just next to someone, I feel like always helps. I think that teachers can definitely be intimidating from time to time. I also think that friends can be intimidating from time to time, but just knowing that like I said earlier, like it's okay to like make a mistake and it's okay not to understand something, and I feel like that's something that I still need to like actually process. But I think that having teachers, family, and even friends, I think that having a high expectation is a privilege. And so, yeah, yep. I think that
Thank you very
absolutely
much,
helps having
Kalima.
people that, yeah.
I think I'd love to hear from Cass and Mimi. Been a while since I heard from you, Cass. Haven't heard from you at all, Mimi. So would love to hear from you all before we close out today.
I guess I can come off of mute for a bit. Um, so what does educational empowerment look like to me? Um, I feel like an environment where students don't feel like they have to compete against one another. They will willingly share knowledge with each other and grow with each other. Instead of feeling like they have to be the best, that they have to be a valedictorian, um, type of situation. Also, when a teacher is not only that when a teacher not only like love what they do, but is also supported in what they do as well. Um, so the teacher can be empowered so that the students will be empowered. So it'd be like a synergy type of thing where everyone can be at their radiating at their best. Um, Having students supported, having enough people in the classroom to support kids when they're struggling. That looks like having a couple of pairs in a room, especially when the classroom is not quote unquote like on level or isn't performing as well as they need to in a way, or even just getting I wouldn't say get rid of standardized testing, 'cause I get how like we're so fixated on that to prove where we are as where the kid children are and everything like that. But um I feel like instead of giving funding more funding to a school that has higher scores, maybe giving that money to a school that is lower achieving. So empowerment with resources. Maybe the school doesn't, that school doesn't have the resources to service everyone. Um, Example, my kid goes to a school where he has OT, which is occupational therapy, and speech therapy every week, sometimes multiple days a week. The school that I was at with my client is lucky to get OT once a month, and he really needs it, you know. Um, Even speech therapy, I feel like it's every couple weeks. Um, And I just feel like it's just sometimes like these schools are just don't have the resources or people to keep up. So basically I feel like yeah, just support in the classroom, support for the students, support for the teachers, fostering an environment to where everyone can learn, no one feels as no and where no one's left behind. Um if the teacher has to go on, maybe a para can sub in and help the kids that are struggling. That's kind of what I did. When I seen a couple kids struggling that were sitting next to me, I helped them out, to kind of help out that teacher because it seemed like she was repeating herself, and I don't know how she had her voice, because like the amount of times she had to repeat, and it's not the children's fault, they just didn't understand, you know. Um, Also, let me see, money. Yeah, I think I covered yeah, resources, um, teacher empowerment, children empowerment. Sometimes I just really feel like also maybe we are too rough on kids and well as the teachers. Maybe we should give them maybe that extra recess there. Um, um, Helping them to have more creative outlets, not just pushing math, science, and reading down their throats, but have like maybe they could if they could incorporate more arts in school so that other kids who are passionate about that type of stuff um, can shine too, and have something, because sometimes I was that kid, like I made okay grades, but um I noticed that even when I would play an instrument, it was okay, but it wasn't like as good as being good in math or science. It wasn't looked upon uh as good as. So um, empowering kids for what they're good at. Um, I feel like it's a big thing because not all kids are good and the things that we want are, we want them to be good in, I feel like a lot of things are geared towards STEM, um, and not, and not towards other areas. It's like, if this kid is good in math, it's like, oh my gosh, this kid's a genius. But if this kid was really good in reading, it's like, oh, okay, they can read, you know. So, um, those are some of my thoughts. Just, just empowerment all around, better resources and just, supporting each other, um, is some of the things I think about when I think about educational empowerment.
Yeah. Thank you, Cass. What about you, Zakum?
Well, I think I'll just double down on what Wise said about like listening and providing a safe space. Um, Especially often young people today in schools and just across their daily experiences, they just get lectured a lot and like told what to do and what not to do and what to think and what not to think. And um I find that just really listening and like when a kid can tell that you care about them and you want to understand them, it just changes everything about your relationship, and the influence that you have on each other. So I'll just double down on learning the skills to be a good listener and creating a space where um, they can come to you and know that they won't be judged.
Right on. Right on. Anybody else want to speak to that last question around what an empowering education system might look like? What's needed to support it?
We don't have any volunteers. Also, a alternate comment in there. I think meetings like this are where we're from the bottom going up, trying to get good ideas. And every time I show up here, I learn something. Uh, Instead of having a half a dozen, give or take, I wish we had more like 50 or 500 or 5,000. We might make more of an impact, but 5,000 people wouldn't be able to talk. So
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. I'll co-sign everything that's been contributed. I've really liked hearing these pieces just around like, patience and creating space. Um, the pieces around like building relationships that are, and that mutual investment in each other and our collective well-being. Um, and I think another big part of it is that it just, it takes some fearlessness. It takes the ability to try some things that are unconventional or untested, but try them critically, with the intention to understand them better. Um, and yeah, yeah, I just think it's been a great conversation today. I thank everybody for participating and contributing. Yeah. Well, it is about 7:58, so I'll close this out just by saying, once again, thank you to everybody who participated and contributed to the conversation. Thank you to everybody who watched, whether that's watching on the call or watching the live stream or the recording somewhere in the future. Thank you as well as always to the Indianapolis Recorder for being a content partner with the Kepler Institute and supporting the Mumbo Jumbo community conversation series, and for fostering that spirit and culture of curiosity through journalism in Indianapolis for more than 100 years. As always, if you want to check out more of what the Kepler Institute is doing, because we try to model an alternative approach to education in a variety of topics and all the work that we do, visit us at Kepler.org. Especially check out Alchemy Plus, which Cass mentioned earlier. That's our online virtual learning platform for things like entrepreneurship, agriculture, creative stuff, all sorts of stuff. Check out Early Growers, which is our early education initiative for children age 3 to 5, I believe. Um, Check out Next
Yep, 3 to 5.
Generation. You said what? Anyways, check out Next Generation Farmers, which is our summer program for kids 13 to 18, where they'll learn about agricultural and entrepreneurial skills. Check out Growing Good in the Hood, which is about teaching people how to do urban gardening. So many educational programs that you can find out about at the Kepler Institute. And as always, if you want to contribute to the work that we do and our ability to have conversations like these and to run all these different, educational endeavors, go to donate.kepler.org. Oh, excuse me. And leave us a donation. Alrighty. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.